Well, hopefully that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But yeah, what you were talking about before, like the time you spend at work or whatever. I was just remembering that Office episode. It's not. I think it was the British Office. The good one. But like they were talking about, like I think there was some scene where it was like, yeah, it's people just forget that you're spending more time with these people, your coworkers, than your family. And it's like it's just a reality. It's like, yeah, it's fucking crazy.
Dude, bosses love to talk about that shit though, for real. Like they'll be like, you spend more time here than you do at home, so we better like it. Like make it somewhere that you want to be. Oh my god, dude. My boss the other day, like in a company-wide meeting, she was talking about you're gonna be here longer than you're at home, so you're gonna want to take care of the place, Don't stand up against the walls. Don't put your feet on the wall. It's like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about?
Shut up,
like,
bitch.
That's your main concern is people putting their feet on the wall? In what reality are people just doing that? Like, this is like the 1980s, like with a bunch of teenagers out back smoking cigarettes. No one's just posted up, like
13-year-olds working at the bowling alley.
Yeah, dude, what the fuck? This isn't Greece.
Yeah, they're Greece. Yeah, they always want you got to keep morale high. You got to,
yeah.
It's just, morale is low already. Like, it's off the rip. Like, we're just trying to get in and get out.
Read the room, bro. No one wants that shit for real.
That's like the kind of shit. I think like that's the kind of shit that like is good if like your coworkers are saying it. Like, that's not shit you want to hear from management. So I'm at Slavoid T.
All right, this is Shit Spouter 37.
This is Black.com build.
This is the Fed Post.
I think like that's the kind of shit that like is good if like your coworkers are saying it, but like that's not shit you want to hear from management. No. Like if your coworkers are all like, "Hey man, like let's just like be happy and like fucking vibe and shit," like dude, that's great.
Sure,
but, like, management is saying that specifically just from a fucking place of just manipulation.
Well, and then most of the time they bring you into a captive. Well, they have you at a captive audience regardless, but most of the time they bring you into meetings and then they say that type of shit to you, and then it's like even more unwelcome because you're like, dude, I don't want to be here at work, much less in this meeting. So maybe like if you go to your manager, you're like, man, today's fucking rough, bro. And they were like, yeah, you just gotta like get through it or something. Maybe that would be a little better. But usually it's just on some like the predication is that you already don't want to be in that situation. And they're like, you just gotta love it. And you're like, fuck you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
This is always the worst part is like well, we've talked about it before. Yeah. It's just like that. We talked about this way back. Like one of the first episodes was like, like they want you to like it, which is worse than just telling you, yeah, this sucks, you got to be here. That's way worse. It's like trying to get you to like it. And it can't come top down. Yeah, if it's from the coworkers, it's totally different. Top down is some shit.
If like I remember I had a job like a few years ago where like one of my coworkers fucking just randomly decided they were like, all right, every like one day a week we have this shift where the crew is just like fucking solid. And so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna have like a fucking theme for like it was like a Sunday or something. It's like we're gonna have a theme for every Sunday. And like, one of them was like we all just like wore Hawaiian shirts and just like stupid shit like that, right? And like that's the type of thing where like if your boss came up with that, and you're like,
oh my god, I'd be so mad. It'd be like an Office Space with the flare, dude.
No, exactly.
But if your homie just wears flare, you're like, yo, that's some dope shit, dude.
No, like you could not get further on. You could not get further like opposite poles of the spectrum than like, hey, like we're just like gonna have like a fun day and like wear Hawaiian shirts because like me and the boys are just vibing versus like the boss man just being like, all right, today's Hawaiian shirt day and like we're gonna raise morale, you know.
Oh yeah, it's completely different. It's sinister. The intention is like completely different.
Exactly.
But like, yeah,
and then every once in a while you get
job.
Yeah, absolutely. And like every once in a while, like you get like the one coworker that's like, "Oh, that's stupid." Like, it's like, man, shut the fuck up. But anyways,
this is gay.
And the answer is yes, it is. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
it's kind of fun.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being gay at work, just a little bit.
Oh, it's wild. It really, yeah. All the jobs I've done, like even the most shitty job, if the coworkers were good, it was all right, you know? And now I got a cush job and my coworkers are horrible. And I'm just like, damn, like it's the other end of it. But
dude,
yeah,
it kind of sucks, man. Having coworkers with bad vibes or just shitty coworkers generally fucking sucks.
Oh, is he just like depressed or like?
Oh, dude, I don't even want to fucking get into it, dude. Everybody's just a fucking mess. The main thing I was saying when you were hopping off for a second, getting your shit figured out, is I'm working with people that are basically on their way out right now. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like the vibes are just absolutely in the toilet because it's just two people completely checked out.
Yeah.
And then me being like, all right, like, let's do it. You know, like, hey, I'm here. And then you have people that have like been there for like years that are just like, ugh. all right.
Yeah.
But anyways, enough about that.
But yeah. All right. Well, okay, let's see. I mean, what could we talk about? I guess we should not be too current. That's for sure. Let's see. I got the chest feeding thing. That
was by the way, I was sitting at the dinner table when you sent that DM.
Yeah.
Of that. And that was like I think like the day before that was like your post about, and you know,
I don't want to hear about trans shit.
No.
And then you're the one.
It was horrible timing.
Exactly. And then
it's great timing actually. Yeah.
I was sitting there at the table and I just started hysterically cracking up.
You're like, honey, CRK's transposing.
No, exactly. I was just sitting there and then I got up and just walked away and she was just like, what the fuck even is this?
That's fucking awesome. That's fucking hilarious. Yeah, man.
Man, that shit made me physically ill.
Yeah.
Well, I had seen it before, I think.
I had never seen it. My roommate was telling me he'd heard about it. He was like, wasn't that a while ago? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that had happened before, but I'm just now seeing this shit.
I'd always heard of chest feeding, but it was always an abstract thing. It was always like a meme, you know? It was never like something I saw. You know what I mean?
Memes are now becoming reality at a very rapid pace.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you know.
Yeah, I don't fucking know, man. I could have sworn I had seen it before. But you know, I mean, like it's always good for another go around in my opinion, right? Dude, I don't know. Like, I mean, where do we even want to start with it, right? Like, I don't.
There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah.
I mean, where do you start with it? Like, I don't know.
I still don't want to hear about trans shit, and this counts as that, in my opinion. Like this shit on the timeline, and like, you know, them posting that video and being like, oh, you know, for trans empowerment. Like that's what I mean too. Is like, I don't want to see this shit. I don't want to see it anymore.
Yeah, but now your shit stinks too, because you're down in the mud with all of us talking about chest feeding.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like you're okay. I'll say this, right? Because we do have like different positions on it a little bit. And also because I've fully taken the like, let's talk about it. Let's just do the transphobia, right? And like
let's just dig into it a little.
Yeah, and I'll say like I agree with it. Like your point is solid and it's yeah, I mean your point is good, right? And the general just like it's a tiny little fraction of the population. I don't know why we're talking about it all the time. And I think one thing is just like a thing I said in response to you, which is like, I think this shit, you have to wonder, right? Like, oh man, like you know, people taking troll bait all the time. Like you're taking the bait, you're falling into the trap of talking about trans stuff, and that's feeding the problem, right? The thing is, I don't know how much. I mean, that's obviously true, right? All of this stuff is like that. But I don't know how much the backlash is even needed with this stuff. Like, I think I think it just spreads like gray goo that will eat the universe regardless. And so I don't fault people. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong about like speaking up about it and shit. Especially because I think that it has like this. It's like a really important Jenga block in the ideological tower of,
and it's maybe the weakest.
It's funny. It's funny because I get what you're saying and I agree to a certain extent, but I think it's like this weird thing of like it might simultaneously be the weakest and the strongest.
It's the most fortified.
Yeah. And so in any case, I get your point of view. Well, I mean, look, I don't even know
video,
what my point is.
Like the video, like I don't know what show that's on. I don't know if it's on like network or cable
TV. Is that some TLC bullshit?
Yeah, it seems like some my life shit, like my 400-pound life shit, like where it's just like some grotesque shit.
Well, to be honest, I took a look at them and it might also just be that show. Yeah.
Well, there's that show on TLC called My Name is Jazz. And it's about like I don't know how old this person is now. She's 16 probably or something. But it started when she was like 12 years old. And she was like transitioned into, and she transitioned to like 12 because she told her parents when she was 2 that she like, when am I going to become a princess is what he told his parents when he was 2. And then they transitioned into now she's a she. And she's like had to have all these different surgeries and is like constantly going through this whole thing because like her new parts are essentially like her body's rejecting them because they're just like not real parts.
This is the show that has the clip where they're wheeling out of the hospital after having a vagina constructed by a surgeon and then hitting a tiny little bump in the wheelchair and having the entire thing burst out.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can't see it. Like this is on broadcast television, but like, no, that's the thing, dude. I'm a child of the internet. I'm like fairly calloused towards like a lot of things, like cringe things, right? But like, dude, something about this, dude, like it makes, it's that thing of like, just like some kind of instinct, like when you think about this stuff, just makes you just like protect dick, or like it's just like
it's like watching the Pain Olympics. You're like, oh fuck, nuh-uh, don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah, like it makes the area tender just thinking about it. Yeah, I mean that's like
I don't know, man, because like that shit's not cool, and like this is a kid, and I don't know, when a 2-year-old says some shit like that or a 4-year-old or whatever, you don't give that shit credence because that kid's fucking 4 years old. Like, I don't know, like what the thought process is there. But that's absurd. And I don't think that that's good or healthy. And I think there's a huge difference between like being someone who just constantly is fixated on a cultural issue, one single one, than someone who will just take the time to discuss how one fits into the broader picture, and moves on from it from there. And like incorporates that into their broader ideology. Like I think that there's a difference between just being someone that schizo posts about one thing all the time and then just being like, yeah, I'll talk about it, whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that show or whatever, like, so in my mind, it's like, all right, they're showing this, and this is not something I encounter in real life. It's not. Like, I don't know if you guys do. I just don't see this type of shit. Obviously, you're not going to see breastfeeding. Well, you do see it in public, but this is just something so, it's like from a different dimension. You know what I mean? So it's so removed that it's just like,
But the more you see it on there and the more you see it in kids' books and the more you see it on social media, the more you're going to see it in real life.
Okay, but you see it in these books and all that, the kids' books. So that's also another thing I don't see. But this is a thing where it's like you said, social media, or it's on this channel, whatever. I only ever see it in media, which, is all bullshit. It's all, I mean, this is just objective truth. It's like, this is a forced thing. Like this whole trans thing
it
is pushed. Yeah. It's top down. It came from a fucking lab. It came from fucking academia or whatever.
That's what my problem is, more so than like, I don't have a problem with individual trans people at all. But that's what the whole issue is, that it is a forced thing and that it is being pushed, and it is that something that is being inorganically driven.
Yeah. What I guess what I mean is like, it's so contrived that it's weird to talk about it as if it's this thing that's like permeating through everyday life. And it's like, the rightoid perspective of like, every day, this is the number one fear and thing that's on my mind. And I'm like, wait, but if I turn off social media and I turn off the TV, it doesn't exist. So what's that about? Like it's like COVID to me. It's like, you know, COVID, if I'm just walking around and I don't watch the news, COVID doesn't exist.
Well, I mean, it exists in the fact that you have to deal with the shutdowns and you have to deal with the like like anything, your business being closed that you worked at and you losing your job or working from home.
That's true.
That's more material, really.
That's true. It's the
for most
the
people,
tangential
for most
things.
people.
The tangential. Oh, like you're right. Like if I see trans bathrooms, that's a tangential thing that I do see. I do start to see that, but I don't see the trans people.
And that's like, to me, that's not an issue at all. Like, whatever. If you want to have bathrooms there, everyone can use bathrooms. That's fine. Like, make one big bathroom that has a shitload of stalls that are all the way down to the ground and up. I mean, even two at a time, fucking whatever.
Yeah. I mean, even if you don't think it's okay, to me, it's just, it's the thing I find weird about it is like, I see all these tangential things like masks and lockdowns and trans bathrooms and trans friendly signs and all that, but I don't see the thing. I don't see, you know what I mean? That's what I mean by like a hallway of like psyop mirrors. You know what I mean? Like, where's the trans people? Where's the COVID? Like, where's it at? I don't see it. It doesn't match the level of prevalence and ubiquity in the media and all this other. You get what I mean? Like, that's what I think about it. It's like
it's part of the like holographic world.
Yeah, it's part of like the fake reality. Well, like that's the hyper reality thing.
And that's yes, exactly. No, that's perfectly it. It's exactly. And that's where I think like my metaphor just about like it's just this kind of central pin. It's this kind of like big important Jenga block in an ideological structure. I think is, you know, to give myself a little pat on the back, like I think that's like a pretty good way of looking at it, you know, because then at a certain point too, like I think Gay Stepdad said something like this. I mean, dude, you get to a certain point where like, you know, I mean, I bet if you talk to even just like an average trans person, as average as they can be, right? Like if you talked to, you know, the first trans person you saw, like, I don't know that they would even be entirely down with a lot of this ideological shit we're talking about, right?
Sure.
And I don't mean to like be making the argument like, hey man, nothing, you know, dude, being trans is chill. It's just a few bad apples. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I think transgenderism is a mental illness, and like this isn't something I want in people. Like, I'm not going to abuse individuals suffer this. Like, I don't want to do that at all. But yeah, like I think it's one of these things of like transgenderism, the idea, the metaphysical thing is what is the thing that that it is the issue. It is the whole object in itself, you know? And in that way, I think it kind of surrounds everybody, right? Because again, like, yeah, it's like COVID, like, well, like that fucking year where we had to be on fucking house arrest was definitely real, right? And like, and you know, like whenever some like ruling class fucking slug needs to make some case for something these days, like, and they really need to do it, they like really, really need to make a strong case, they like just say like, you know, this issue's killing trans people or something. And then they get what they want, you know, like in that way, like, and there's more examples than just that, but in that way, it like is constantly surrounded.
Yeah, but to me, it's sort of like the COVID comparison of like, you know, the right wingers that run with the whole like China did this, is China's fault. Like China's got a secret conspiracy to destroy America. You know, that's what it's about, really. You know, that type of thing. That argument is like, all right, you're giving credence to the psyop. You're making it seem like it's real, which it's not. You know what I mean?
It's reifying it, right?
Yeah, like, because it's like, yo, China didn't do this shit in a vacuum. Where our money funded the lab. Like, China and America aren't really enemies. Like, really, like, everybody's got their hand in this shit. Like, everybody's making money off of this shit.
With this thing specifically and not with the COVID, I think this is like, it's more like saying, yeah, it is a psyop, but it's working. Like, it is working pretty, like, it's not working like so much that everyone around you is being, you know, changed by this or affected by this, or that you specifically are being affected by it.
Nope,
now.
You spoke too soon. I got my pecker right between a pair of scissors right now.
I know what you mean, but like the discourse has changed, not necessarily the people.
Well,
but
and
like,
I think the numbers have gone up too. I mean, if you look at the younger generation, no doubt fucking about it, dude.
And that's the thing is like, you can't, like, there's nothing CNN. Well, I mean, I don't know, knock on wood, right? But like, there's nothing CNN can do that will make it so that like the original COVID-19, barring like the collector's edition Delta variant and all that fucking bugman horse shit, like they can't make COVID physically more dangerous than it is.
Right, they can't.
You know what I mean? Whereas
they
like
kind of can through like, you know, gain of function research like they did in the first place.
Right.
Touche.
But like you know what I mean.
No, for sure.
But like because we're talking about a metaphysical thing in transgenderism, like they definitely can do that. And like, I don't know, coming out of like the leftoid stupor that I'd been in like the last couple of months, and you know, realistically, like I think I still ultimately kind of, you know, in a pinch will just like identify as left wing, you know, but just the idea.
We got him, boys. We got
Depending on whose barrel is pointed at you.
Dude, like I think I said it like last episode or something. Like I think I would go by third positionist if the most popular third positionism wasn't Nazism. But anyways,
that was a great tweet. Yeah, I feel the same way for sure.
But anyways, what the fuck
because
was
of Nazism?
Right. What the fuck was I saying, boys?
Let's see. You started talking about Nazis.
No, dude, the idea that like leftists just like don't accept, and they don't like overwhelmingly for the most part don't accept that like sexuality, sexual orientation is something that can be socialized into people.
Right. I remember you saying this on Ghost Show. I wanted to ask more about that.
Yeah, it's like that's fucking insane. Well, I mean, I don't know how much more I have to say about it, just because like leftists just like as kind of a point of almost habit, you know, they reject essentialism. And like, hey, you know, I'm saying this like I'm of the same ilk. I do the same thing, right? There's something philosophically and even just comfort wise that I don't like about just like having my fate limited. You know,
I don't think they reject essentialism. I think they because they're saying that you're born gay, you're born trans, you're born.
That's what I'm saying. Some people though saying that like not, you know, like if you look into the science where people are like, oh well, not everyone's straight. Like that's a big talking point, right? It's like everyone's gay. That's like a lot of things that people talk about. Everyone's queer actually. That's like them saying, well, that straightness or whatever is actually a construct that's been forced upon people in a way and socialized into them in that same way, so they can't apply it in the other direction as well.
Well, that's the funniest part is that like all of like the insane reactionary takes are always just like designated for the identity group that they don't like progressives just like get out the calipers for white people and everything. But
right.
No, the point I'm making, like CRK, you said like no, that they do essentialize about sexuality, and that's my point, right? Is that it's like this big exception they make, and that leftists just don't acknowledge that you could. I mean, the point I'm just working to is just like people throw out the concept that you could condition someone to be gay or straight, and like that's just like insane. That's just like fucking.
I think sexuality is different though than one's actual gender. I think that's like a big thing that's being conflated with a lot of the transgenderism thing as well. Like I think a lot of people who are quote unquote trans are actually just people that have.
Well, I'm talking about. Well, fuck. I mean,
yeah, I do notice that. I always wonder about that because that the two of those things really do get conflated.
And they're not. And I don't think they're the same. Like, there's a way bigger difference between being like, yeah, I like dick, or like, yeah, I am like my physical body is completely wrong, and I need to change it.
I don't know. Maybe there is a connection. Maybe I just don't know. I haven't really thought much.
There may
about
be a
it.
connection. I don't. But it's a huge difference functionally.
I mean, I'm sure there is a connection, but like you're absolutely right about the difference. The point I'm just sort of making, if I can, my fucking stoned brain can hold a coherent thought for more than 5 seconds, is just that the point I'm making is just that when you look at the Blue's Clues video and you look at all these fucking children's books that you're talking about, COH, you look at all of these things, right? I mean, come on, it's early childhood development, fucking in education, right? What the fuck do we think we're doing here? What is the point?
And that's how they prep you. Like, that's how they gear you and like root the ideology deep in your brain, is through what they're teaching you in the education system. It's the same way that media works, but it's just like more heavily like used.
Exactly.
And it's like they're in the middle of it constantly. They don't choose it.
And then the average lib hears what you just said and they say, hey man, like it's not about actually, you know, making the kids take on the form of what they're seeing in these books. It's more just about the fact that like they can see themselves in it because that's who they are truly on the inside and all of that. And it's like, that is so fucking dishonest. Yeah. That is insane. And then you get all these fucking like keyboard warrior fags who talk about like, hey man, like this is just the same argument as violence in video games. Like, I don't know anything about that, but obviously surrounding dude, Gamergate will never end, right? But like, just like, oh my God, I had to listen to libs complain about, I'm not even going to go into it. You get my point. I'm going to stop rambling.
Well, the difference, okay, so I was talking about just a second ago, the difference between like a sexuality or a sexual preference and then actual like gender or like what your sex is biologically. And like, that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing books that are like for children 0 to 5 or 5 to 8 that are not about trans people or don't feature a trans person, but are about drag and shit like that. These are things that are not specific to transgenderism or to trans identity at all. These are things that are specifically like sexual preferences, sexual performances, or kink related type of things like that they can loop into this, and they can all kind of lump it together saying, oh, this is all transgenderism and this is all passe and this is okay because these peer-reviewed papers say that it's okay actually, and that you should let people choose what their gender is when they're, based upon how they fit into the society around them and this type of thing, rather than based upon what the physical confines of their body and their hormones are. And so like you're doing this to children and you're letting them see all this stuff, not just as representation, but you're giving them specific stories about this one thing, about like a little boy who wants to become a mermaid and is like, because he sees drag queens that are dressed up that way and then dresses up that way, and his grandma takes him to like a drag show. This is a book called Julian is a Mermaid, and it's for 0 to 5-year-olds. Like that's fucked up. Like, and then you see a book that's for people that are going into high school or middle school, and it's called Drag Teen, and it's like, this boy's going out of high school soon, and then he's going to be going to college, but he has no scholarship and no money to pay for it, and he has got no job opportunities, and he's alienated, and he has unsupportive parents. He's got no future. His only hope is to run away to New York and become the next Miss Top Drag Queen teen of New York. What the fuck is that, dude? And like, you're showing us to people, kids, before they've even gone through puberty, before they even have like the full levels of hormones that their bodies are going to be providing for them in the first place to make them into what they actually are biologically designed to be. And so of course people are going to be having, oh, I don't feel like a boy, I don't feel like a girl. Yeah, you don't have you haven't even gone through puberty yet. And so when you start with people who have very impressionable brains and you start kind of putting this like gender ideology and like sexual preference ideology in people who shouldn't even be really thinking about or aren't usually even thinking about sex yet, at least not consciously, that's a big step beyond representation.
Yeah, and and I mean, I've said before, like, I believe children are blank slates, and with the whole Huxley like Brave New World thing, like conditioning young, like, I mean, I've said like I don't think they can turn us trans, like I don't think they can turn our generation or anybody older trans, but as far as children and how like malleable they are, that doesn't sound that insane to me. Like that fear or whatever, it doesn't sound that insane to the degree that's happening or that's actually going to manifest. I don't know. Well, I really don't know.
My concern with it mostly is not even like, oh, I'm worried they're going to turn all these kids trans or whatever, but it's more so that like this is just another step in this whole creation of this like hyper reality and pushing everyone into this hyper reality that has nothing to do with the material conditions in everyone's face every fucking day. And this is maybe the biggest step in that direction, because it's saying, oh, you're not even tied to your physical fucking body. You're actually just completely a representation of whatever shit you've consumed or media you've consumed, whatever ideology has made its way into your brain and warped your brain into thinking. And whatever that is actually more real and more important than what's physically impacting you every single day, even at the most basic level.
Yeah. And this is where, I'll say, one thing that I see the NRX dudes bring up that I do just disagree with them on, and I think part of it is like a little bit semantic, is they hate materialism, right? They hate materialism. And like, I'm saying this as someone who like, ultimately, I am not a materialist as far as my philosophy towards the universe goes, right? But I say this always, which is, this is like my pitch on class politics, right? Like, the black community, the gay community, all of these, there is no such thing, right? These things don't actually exist. There are groups of black people and of gay people and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but there's no community, right? Yep. Like that's not a materially existing thing, right? But
exactly.
when you talk about lower class people, right? This is an identity. This is a category that is fundamentally quantifiable. It exists in the material world. Right, and when we're talking about how to approach practical solutions to problems and things like that, I don't know about you, but I personally like to base it on the thing that I can fucking measure.
Yes.
Speak
on it, dude.
As opposed to fucking pixie dust floating around.
Yeah.
If you can measure something, just with it, you can measure something that seems like it's a little bit more. Boom! I can bang on my desk. I can, you know what I mean. And one thing
you can see it in real life,
exactly. And I promise I'm getting to my point. Which is the next point about it is these NRX guys. Oh, we hate materialism. Blah 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 blah. Right. And I think the thing they're talking about that what they mean, and I don't think they even really understand the distinction, or I guess they would say you can't have it both ways. But like they're talking about philosophical, right? The ultimate worldview. Oh, we lost the divine. We lost some kind of X place for God to exist, right? And like that's not what I mean.
I mean vulgar materialism.
Well, I don't even think that. Like I think that like it's true. Like a materialist view of the universe is what they're talking, right? But like you can be a materialist in other stages. It's kind of like how anarchism can be plugged into anything, right? But the whole thing, right, is that still ultimately, despite everything, right, I think the best way to pill people and get them towards not being completely politically impotent and completely cucked is to be like, look, guys, fucking that desk you can bang on in front of you. Like, focus on things that are material. Be a materialist with politics because it's a simple, coherent alternative. And this is all to come back around to say, I can understand the aversion to wanting to talk about the trans stuff because it's fully in the ideal realm. It's fully disconnected from material. In my opinion, I'm sure someone could actually me or something.
But that's why it's almost so important, I feel like.
Well, the ultimate point I'm making just is I think that we can't pick the circumstances we're coming in at, right? And people are really far into the realm of ideas, right? And I think that this conception of humanity as like your 3-year-old comes out and they just like have their true self already created, like that's like a straitjacket that normies are in that I think really does preclude any kind of material approach or class consciousness or anything. And I think, as much as I would wish for the opposite to be the case, I think it needs to be addressed before we can hope to really just do the materialism pill.
No, but that's my concern though, is because like I have people in my mentions who are like, I'll be a slave to BlackRock if they stop trying to turn kids trans. You know what
those
I mean?
People are wrong.
Yeah, but let's not pretend like he's in isolation thinking that, right? I mean, this is how it works. Like this is, and whenever I bring this type of stuff up, they're like, we can do both, which is exactly what the left told me. The left told me the exact same thing. I was like, yo, sure, but we got to have priorities, right? Like we can't fix all this, so you can't get rid of bigotry in people's hearts. You can't do that. Like, or maybe you can try, but hey, you do that on your, I'm not trying to go down that road because it's never going to work. And I don't know how to do this whole battle of the spirits and the shit in the ether. I don't know how to do that. And if you want to do it, I mean, fine, but like, where does it end? Like where? And then they tell me like, we can do both. We can do the material and the abstract.
You can talk about like cultural issues without boiling it down to good versus evil and spirits in the air. Like you can use cultural issues to paint a picture of how they're affecting like a material reality and a way why they fit into it and like what purpose they play in for who. And they're important to do that because those are the things that people are the most familiar with talking about are these cultural issues. So if you can do it in a coherent way that can paint it into a broader picture of how it actually affects them day to day and why it's actually being used and why this fits into the ideology of the people that are keeping them, they're keeping you at bay so they can contain power and can keep it over you. It's important to do that, to draw those lines for people, because otherwise most people turn off their brain when they start hearing you just talk about some like baseline economic and political shit too. Like you have to be able to come to people where they're at, and some people where they're at is just constantly, because that's all that they want you to talk about, right? It's not material shit, right? So you have to be able to tie material shit in and give them that baseline. It's like, yeah, we need a material economic project. We need to be able to do this stuff. If we can bring everyone more meaningful livelihoods, then you will see a lot of this stuff start to go away on its own. And if we did remove the ability for people to profit off of a lot of this stuff and then to be able to hold power through these positions, then yeah, we would be able to stop a lot of this stuff that you're worried about without having to just say, hey, this one group is the problem. Like you need to be able to do that for people, because that's where people are at. A lot of people.
I know, but I think that's why it's important to
you have to bring them back,
reclarify the priorities, because I mean it's like what SLAV was just getting at, was like certain things are more salient. Like if somebody's like, yo, we're gonna cut your kid's dick off, that's very fucking salient. Yeah. That's way more salient than like, we're gonna take your home. I mean, we might realistically be like, oh, they're going to take your home. That's not up for debate. That's not in speculation. That's happening. Versus they might cut your kid's dick off. That might happen, right? One thing might be more certain and more severe and more real and in your face, but that looming, specter of what might happen, that's more. And it's the same thing with the left. Like if some random white person calls you the N-word, that might stick out to you more than the fact that some black-owned companies, cutting off your water supply or cutting off your electricity, like that type of shit. One thing is more salient than the other, because that's how people's brains are wired.
I mean, they're just retarded. They're trying to take your house away, and they're going to chop your dick off, possibly. Like the difference is that both of those things exist, and both of those things are being used to the same purpose. And
here's the main. This was kind of part of my point, which is like the main one of the main threats of this way of conceiving of the self in this trans. I mean, it's transhumanism, really, right? But this transgender entire thing is that like the person who honestly thinks of themselves as a human, as something that you could just like upload into a fucking flash drive and then just like plug into a fucking pod computer or something, and they can just ascend their physical form because they're just some tiny little spark in like a flesh prison. Like that person, through ideological means, has been stripped of any way to even fucking care about their house being taken away. Yeah. What the fuck does it matter? What the fuck does it matter if they're like 2 seconds away from just like, oh, I'm going to be uploaded into the cloud, so why should I even care about, my neighborhood being safe or my house exists? And like, I really, really do think that's a thing. Like, I really do think that like this mind-body dualism of people just dissociating from their physical form entirely. Yeah. I like think that that's a real threat.
No, that's a fair point.
It's a huge piece of the puzzle, dude.
And that's my main point.
No, that's what COH was getting at before with the transhumanism thing, which is a fair point. Like they'll put you in the pod with the bugs and you won't even mind, because you're just like, none of this physical shit really matters. Yeah. It's the opposite of materialism. Yeah, it's just all and like.
It's not even so much that. Well, it is that as well, but it's also the fact that it can keep telling you that like everything around you is completely different than what you can actually see it, and you can keep believing it. Like it's beyond like that you're actually just like, you don't care about your house, because maybe you do care about your house, but they can keep telling you that, oh, we're not actually taking your house. We're just like refitting your house and to make it something better that's actually a pod. And you can keep saying, yeah, it's actually fucking good. Like, because
it's helping
this
the
is
environment.
Creating this entire hyper reality that like you're just stuck in. And it's not even so much that you lose your like care for yourself, but it's you lose your agency mostly.
No, it's true. Like they could cut off your water and electricity every month, every week, and then they would tell you like, oh, it's to save the environment. You're saving the environment. And someone in their room in the dark could be like, I'm saving the environment. And in reality, if you check the numbers, you check whatever CO2, it's making zero difference. So yeah, I could see that. I could totally see where you're just like,
which is funny because
imagining things.
Because we're talking about like the hyper real in regards to the environment. And like, I think this is something that Tucker's talked about before, but I think it's a really good point, which is like people appreciate environmental issues on the macro level. But then when you actually start to engage your average normie on just like environmental issues directly affecting their immediate local area, people are completely, I mean, you know, there's people that care, but like the level of interest drops off exponentially, dude. A lot of people don't give a fuck about their local water tables or like or preserving any natural habitats around their place.
And they do nothing to actually like take steps in that direction.
No,
like the way they live is completely counter to like that. But then they're going to tell you that like, oh, you actually, or they'll be fine with shutting their power off for 3 weeks, but then they're going to just like go and just like, you know, not actually support their local watersheds by like going and cleaning up or spending time around them in an ecologically safe manner. They're just going to go out there and like drink their beers by it or whatever the fuck.
Well, and even short of like people actually actively getting engaged, like people just don't think about that shit. And it's a logical inconsistency. Like it's different. And I think that's the best little opening that you kind of get into. Whoops, sorry, I hit my mic. I think that's the best little opening you can get into seeing that like climate, not to be all over the place, but climate change ideology isn't like science or anything. It's just like eschatology. It's just in a theory of the end of the world. And it's a way to just get people to just abandon the physical reality, to just become withdrawn. It's a way of just breaking people. And like,
I don't know. I think there's a lot of it's based in the physical reality. There is like pretty substantial and marketable differences, and you can look at like species that are being wiped off the planet.
Oh no, I'm not saying that climate change isn't real. I'm saying that like it as the metaphysical object, right, is a doomsday cult. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not real. I'm saying that the idea that you cutting off your electricity or living in a pod would make a difference is imaginary. Right, that's imagined. That's made up. That's the hyperrealist shit you're talking about. Like you're not putting a dent in that shit. But if they can convince you of that and you believe that, you'll be saving them a fuck ton of money. Which, like, you know, I think that's the concern.
I think with the climate change thing, like what SLAV was talking about there, I think the main problem is that they've decoupled climate change from the actual world itself and like this reality and like in the material reality of it. So when like they think about it like you're saying, SLAV, it's a metaphysical thing. So it's almost like it's like this like carbon karma or something that like it's not like actually physically taking place around us, or that, you know, it's not because of things and people that are choosing to do this around us. It's because we're all making immoral decisions. We're not all thinking and making the most informed scientific decisions. And so because of that, one day the rapture is going to come, that kind of thing. When in fact, it's actually like, no, it's based in material reality that, you know, there's a handful of corporations that are, you know, lobbying for and doing these specific actions that are putting plastic into your waters, industrial fertilizers into your waters, that are ruining the air that you breathe, that are polluting all the water that you drink, and all the fish that you can get from it, and that are wiping out all the biodiversity and the beautiful stuff around you, in search of profit. It's not that. It's actually, oh, you're just a gluttonous little pig that wants to eat too much meat, you know, that kind of thing. And so it makes this whole thing like you're saying, a metaphysical thing, but not that the fact that climate change itself isn't real, but that the decoupling of it from this material reality and then not looking at it and analyzing it through a material frame, that's what gives it this, you know, very metaphysical feel to it. That's just kind of like the invisible hand.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think as far as all this type of like hyper real shit, I think the next thing which you guys were kind of like touching on is like mental illness. I feel like mental. Oh well, I mean, whether you argue transgenderism is mental illness or not, but like, and also, you know, I was gonna mention before, like I've had kids, like friends in like college or whatever, that like, you know, it's the cliche like, oh, question their sexuality or their gender, or they're just confused or whatever. And like, you know, I've had people with like delusion or mental illness in my family or whatever, and like, you know, it could be very well soon. I mean, it's not even could be. It's like that's where we're headed, is where all mental illness, all delusion. You can't question. You know what I mean? Like that line of like, oh, someone's saying something crazy. They heard voices. You can't entertain that. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to like get in their face about it, but you can't entertain it. Like, you have to treat that as what it is. We could get to a point, and I was thinking about this like a year ago or so, and I mean, I don't see a reason why not.
Well, yeah,
we get to a point where it just be like, yeah, you know, you can't say that.
That's the whole thing with the trans thing, that like that's a big step in that direction too. It's like, okay, so even trans people would tell you that if they were born into the wrong body or whatever, right? So that would mean that something there is a disorder of some kind, right? They are put into the wrong body. Either it's a mental illness or it's a physical, whatever it is. It's something that they want to be corrected through hormonal treatment, through whatever. So even they'll admit that it's some sort of mental disorder, some type of wires got crossed, something is wrong there, right? So you can admit that something is possibly a mental illness or something without saying like, oh, this is like these people are crazy. And that's why I think it, like, you can say, oh, well, this is actually probably a disorder. And what we should probably do is treat it as such. And what you do with people that have disorders or things of that nature, or like say someone has body dysmorphia where they think that they are super fat, but they're skinny and they develop anorexia and stuff. You don't just tell them, yeah, you actually are super fat. What you're doing is like, you need to maybe just like do more anorexia or get a stomach tuck. You don't do that. Right. You say like, oh no, like actually here's a mirror you can stand in front of where you look like your actual size or something. Telling that the tricks your brain back into like doing more normal functions. And then eventually those neurons and pathways are firing and back. I don't know how brain shit works, obviously.
Yeah, you try to fucking help people.
But yeah, you try to fix the problem. Like, and you don't do that by just
being an enabler,
reaffirming it. Yeah.
I mean, we're like literally just like at the point where like you like see some schizophrenic guy saying like, you know, like, oh, I can hear God speak to me. And like, and people are just like, you know, playing into it and going along with what he's saying because there's a potential of creating a new market for people that think they can hear God. And it's like, this is
you can sell them lobotomies.
Oh, yeah. That's your brand. You made your brand. It's like you tell them like, oh yeah, good job with your brand or whatever.
Right. I'm the brand ambassador for men who can speak to God.
See snakes. Yeah. No, I mean, it's the same thing with the giving children's thoughts like credence or whatever that you were saying before. It's like, you just can't do that. You just can't. I mean, or even like, you know.
You have to establish a point and say, no, this is a collected vision of an actual material reality that we all share. And this is where the line is, and this is it. And there has to be some sort of semblance of that. And the way that you do that is through like social and group norms. That's how that type of shared reality is established, through ritual, through tradition, that type of. Now, I'm not saying that we need to go back to old traditions, but we need to find new ways to establish group norms and create community that can somehow provide a collective vision for a reality that we all share.
Right. And I mean, like, you know, it's the same thing with like the drug addiction or the crime or whatever. It's like these are things that leftists are supposed to cite as like, oh, the economy's bad and that's why these horrible things are happening. And now they don't even say that they're horrible. Now they're just like, oh, yeah, well, that's good that that's happening.
Yeah,
you know
like, you just gotta deal with it. That shit happens, and sometimes, bro, like that's what happens when you're poor. You can't just you can't just hate these people for that. And you're like, yeah, of course I don't just hate drug addicts for being drug addicts, but like I don't want to see them shooting up on the subway next to me, no. And like, no, I don't want these things these negative things that are happening in society to continue. And no, I don't want to live in some sort of crumbling dystopia. And I would like to try to take some steps, however small I can, to change that.
Dude, come on, dude. The person shooting up on heroin is just gonna get sleepy, dude. Like, it's not like right. just because he's hurting himself doesn't mean he's gonna hurt you, bro. Come on, man. Come on, dude. You're the Tradcath mom, dude. Come on, dude.
Or that it's based or whatever, like that it's based to be
it's based to be on heroin on the subway, actually, because that's doing crimes. If the only thing that'd be better if they were doing gay stuff too.
No, exactly. It's like hobos underneath an overpass sucking each other's dicks high on crack. Be gay, do crime.
Oh my god. Yeah.
fucking, it's bullshit, dude. I don't want to be a fucking libertarian, man. I'm not in fucking high school anymore.
Yeah.
Come on. How the fuck can you be a collectivist and not understand that like the people 5 heads down from you doing something bad is not good for you also?
Fucking thank you. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that you have to like be morally indignant or something, but like what it means is that like as a society, we try to establish a baseline to begin with where people have their needs met and they live meaningful livelihoods to where they don't want to or have to go down some of these avenues. And then from there, what we do is we try to encourage other ways to, I don't know, whatever, let off steam or procure extra money, or if that shouldn't be a problem if you already have all your needs met. So what we try to do then is we just establish norms for healthy lives. And like, you don't have to do this by just being like, we need a strict religious theocracy, or you don't need stuff like that. But what you do need is to provide people the ability to do so. And then I think that most people, if you give them the proper setup materially, most people are going to probably rise to the occasion to some degree. And like right now, people are going to be reverting back to their old ways, sure, if we just flipped a switch. So it's not something that we would have to we'd have to work at it. But I think that if we were able to provide people with a more meaningful life and a better material reality around them, then we could have people, as a society, establish a more collective vision for going forward that we could stick to and hold true to.
This is the thing, though, is like what you said about like collectivism. Like the problem I see with this about the norms approach, or like the forming like a objective like moral code or whatever, is
it's not even about morals really, though. It's just about like the health of a society. We want to see everyone having meaningful lives, and we want to see the community thrive. And the way that you do that is by not having things that are degrading to the community.
I know, but the problem with a lot of this is that it's to me, it manifests a lot as individualism a lot of the time, where, if we're going back and thinking about how we've dealt with deviation from, if you have a tribe or society and you're trying to keep strict norms to keep the tribe alive, right? The way to deal with any deviancy from it is to, toss them in the woods, kill them. That was the way we did it. I mean, it was the simplest thing to do. I mean, there's no other, it was logical. You don't take a chance with that. So like,
what
I'm saying is like,
your worry is like, it always devolves into like, let's throw people into camps.
No, I mean, there's people who tell me we need to do that all the time, every day. They tell me.
Looking at the numbers.
No, I mean, I didn't think people really thought that, but people tell me it every single day. And I'm just like, at first I just kind of blow it off as like, oh yeah, it's just one crazy person. I hear it all the time. And this is the thing. And like with the guy talking about like, oh, I want to be a slave to BlackRock if they'll stop this stuff, this trans stuff or whatever. Like a lot of this stuff, it can turn into individualism. So if some guy is coming to me and he's delusional and he's saying like, oh, I'm a king, I'm an emperor, you have to kiss my feet, right? And he's got some mental disorder, he's some homeless dude or whatever. Like is like stopping him or punishing him for being this way, is that going to change anything?
No.
Holistically,
what you do
not
is,
really.
See, okay, some people do need to go, but the people that need to go are the BlackRock people, and they're not the other group of people. Sure,
I'm down with that. But what I'm saying is that this when there's a sole focus on like ideals and identity or whatever, then there is no power dynamic. It's all flattened, right? Because someone on the street, like a pedo elite, right? Mm-hmm. Some random pedo on the street is the same. They're the same. So in a lot of these people with like the true and on left, or a lot of these right towards, like if you were to stone a pedophile on the street, it's revolutionary. You're fighting back against the powers that be, which is just nonsense.
If it was like Jeff Bezos, then I mean, or one of those cats.
But that's the difference.
Depends who it is with what like relation to power.
That's what I mean, though. But I'm saying, like, if it's some random person on the street with no power, they might consider this as like, I'm fighting back against the elite, which is like, that's what I mean of like the flattening thing, where it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, sure, like, yeah, established norms and like, that's the difference between that and entertaining it and being like,
I'm not trying to like me establish norms. And I don't think that we need to like establish a party that can establish like a moral code or anything like that. What I think is that I want to work towards trying to snap people out of a hyper reality and into seeing the material reality around them, right? The machinations of the forces that be, like social forces that are going on, political and economic forces that are shaping the actual material reality that affects them day to day, right? So a lot of that you have to go every now and again and say, hey, this is the part of the hyper reality, and here's a picture of the actual material reality, and this is where the discrepancies are. So you have to be able to pull up that hyper reality and interface with it in order to show people that material reality. And though, like, focusing just particularly on one identity group or anything is the wrong way to do that entirely. But if someone's main thought and concern with that is like, hey, these trans people are ruining the world or whatever, you can say, no, trans people aren't fucking ruining the world. Are you kidding me? They're victims of everything just as much as me and you are victims of everything. These people are victims of ideology just like me and you are victims of ideology, and they deserve to have a more meaningful life, and they should get one just like me and you should. And the way that we can do that is by looking and saying, who is driving all of this stuff that is warping everyone's minds? Who's providing this dominant ideology? Who does it serve? And then how do we try to A, break away from that ideology and see things around us for the way that they are, and then B, try to somehow counter it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think countering it on a like an ideological level, like what SLAV was talking about, like you know, the push, the top down push. That, yeah, I can understand that. But you know how these things manifest. What was it? Those guys were outside that spa, like because of that. I don't know the exact story or whatever.
Oh,
but
yeah,
they're protesting outside that
in
spa.
LA.
Whatever. Like, yeah, but like, yeah, that's the thing. That's like, what is that doing? What is that doing? And you know what I mean? Like, and somebody today was telling me like, oh,
I don't think that's doing anything.
Yeah, it's not doing shit. But this what I'm warning against is like false victories or whatever, you know, because the left does this all the time. Like, oh, we publicly shame some random racist on the street. Like this is revolutionary. This is fighting back against. It's like you didn't do shit. That didn't do anything.
But right now you're equivocating it, just like even engaging with the idea or topic as being one of the people who are cheering this on as a victory, or being one of those people on the street, which is not the same thing. And like lumping them together as the same thing is harmful. Because it makes it so that you're basically right now you're saying like, oh, you know, I'm warning against talking about this stuff because then you're going to have a false consciousness of people thinking that, oh, it's actually these people who are causing the problem, these trans people. And so they'll have they'll think that these are victories.
It's like a false political consciousness.
Yeah. You'll think that it's causing a false political consciousness. And so you're lumping together talking about that as saying, oh, well, that's the logical conclusion and this will happen. But that's like saying that people who are talking about COVID as being maybe not as serious as they were thinking it was, or being, overblown by media hype and that type of stuff. That's like the same thing as lumping those people together with crazy conspiracy theorist brain people who are going to
no, you're right. You're right.
What you're doing there functionally is the same thing. So it discounts talking about it as a whole, but you have to be able to engage with these things and draw them back to materialism.
No, you're right. There's a difference, but I'm not saying we shouldn't talk about it, because I've talked about literally like the 4th episode we did. I was like, yeah, this trans shit is like,
and we're talking about it now.
Like,
for sure.
We talk about it. We've talked about it more than I ever thought we would talk about it. But like, I mean, I'm just saying.
Well,
like,
apparently to some people, we don't talk about it nearly enough.
All right, yeah. That's the thing, man. After I don't know what it is in the last couple months. Like all of a sudden, it was like, I don't know if it's the algo or the like CIA or whatever, but all of a sudden it's just everywhere all the time.
Well, no, that's the attention issue. It's like I was realizing this other day, like, because I was looking at a bunch of the kids' books that were like not being ordered as much, that were older ones, and a lot of them were like ones called Dreamer that are about like this little Latino who came to our country, and she's a little girl and her family was separated at the border. But you don't see so much of that anymore, and you don't hear so much talk about that anymore, because the ideological party and B, no, they're not going to do shit to change anything to do with that. But what they can do is instead talk about something else that they can say, oh, we can make ideological and symbolic gestures towards this. And we can, it's like Slav was talking about with the sacred cow type of thing.
The campaign promises we got were the gender identities we found along the way. Like, it's just nothing. Like it's just nothing. It's convincing people they can just like do alchemy, and you just pull it out of nowhere. Yeah, it's nothing. I don't know. Talking about the people that just like the people that unironically talk about camps and shit like that, and just genuinely just want to go bash on people and everything. Like, I don't know. I mean, this just kind of reminds me of like our conversation with Yerk about like the N-word. I just think like at a certain point, like there's gonna be people that just kind of like lose the thread and just fall into just like the dumb lizard brain bullshit.
I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're LARPing. But
no. That's what
when the LARP becomes reality, then there's little to no difference at that point.
Well, I'm not talking about whether or not they're actually going to fucking do it or not. I'm just saying like the second someone's like, I pop into the Discord, I type out a hard R, good morning Vietnam, and then some, and then somebody responds by being like, no, but for real, like we need to fucking kill them. Like, it's like, all right, like, whether or not this person actually is going to do it or not, like if that person means that, like they have defanged themselves politically, because like that's not coherent. That you're being a fucking nut. You're being a fucking nut. And like everybody's going to do that at a certain point. Or not everybody, but there's always going to be people like that with anything.
And also a lot of cultural issues like this specifically, people are more like open to talking about and way more like they actually are like, this is kind of weird than like just saying the N-word, obviously. Like to me, that's not palatable at all. But I would be like, hey, yeah. Like, let's talk about this trans thing for a second. Like it's, you have to meet people where they're at, CRK, and you have to like come back and bring that into the pure materialism shit that you're talking about, man. Because if you have to be able to meet people where they're at and explain it to them in that way. Otherwise, they're never going to come down to where you're at, or you're never going to go up to like, you're never going to be on the same page or get them on the same page with you if you can't speak their language first.
I love that this entire discussion has just become us doing a struggle session with CRK to get him to be pilled on trans stuff.
Well, no, to me it's just cultural. Like the whole thing, the whole time I've been talking with you guys on this podcast, and I know that me and CRK butt heads on it for a lot, is that you do have to engage with cultural stuff, because cultural stuff is ideology, and ideology is powerful, and ideology is used towards material means, and it is shaped by material things around you. I'm
not saying not to talk about it, because I've talked about it before. I'm just saying, right? And as far as like what people think, I mean, nobody is as far as like, oh, there's a few like loons or whatever, like the vast majority of people talking about this aren't talking about it because of hyperreality or these intellectual cerebral things that we're talking about, or even the NRX theory cells are talking about. Like, they're not thinking about it because of that. They're just thinking on a visceral level of disgust. I mean, that's
exactly. So you take them and you say, oh, well, now there's an in right there. You're already thinking about this thing on a visceral level. So let me tell you specifically, like, maybe why it's so visceral to you in a material way, why it is that you have such a visceral reaction to this, and why it is that this seems so unnatural, because it is.
Well, or even like not everybody needs to be like a fucking philosopher king about all of this shit. It's just like at the end of the day, like, okay, engaging in like political activism in any capacity anymore, I think is like questionable a lot of the time. I mean, like going to protests and shit. It's like, I think, like, I don't know, like, what are you doing at a certain point? But if those like, protests at LA could accomplish anything positive, maybe it's just the fact that like a few people who were undecided maybe saw that and maybe won't go on to cut their kid's cock off or something. And like, I don't know. Like, it's not, is it going to change the fucking world? Like, no. But like, I don't know that everybody needs to be absolutely on the correct page about it.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they need to like understand the real. Like,
no, that's what COH was saying.
Yeah. Right. I'm just saying like, these people are going to run with this shit, and, there's incentive to like play along with this shit. Because if among certain elements, basically the right in general, like if you just say like, I want to stone the troons, like you're gonna get like mad engagement
to not talk about it or be super pro it.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna get mad engagement for not saying anything, like not trying to do what you're talking about of like, oh, let me let me take this in and guide you to this other way. Not for doing that, just for the incentives are there. It's like, it's just red meat. It's just empty shit. And it's just like, whatever. We don't have to keep talking about this. This is just what I think about it. Like, but like, yeah, I
mean, we should talk about something else. Like, we did eat up the entire time allotted.